Hey, welcome to it. What is up, everybody? It is crunch time. It is sponsored by FanDuel. And I low key kind of like when we don't have a show ahead of us. Not because I don't like talking with Dean. Dean's my boy. I like Dean. But that intro music that gets me hyped. I am ready. And I'm joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. One, it is Mr. Justin Van Zuden, aka STL Cards. Cards, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Our youngest has the flu and is currently throwing up with a fever of about 102.5. So hopefully that doesn't make its way around the rest of the household. We're trying to prevent that, but with kids that never works. So we
Yeah.
will all succumb to it eventually. But for now, I'm doing fine.
Okay.
We'll enjoy the good health while it lasts and see if we can make some money tonight.
Okay. All right, we'll pencil you in for some sick days in the
Yeah,
coming week or
if I'm
two.
out in the next few days,
Yeah,
y'all know why. So
that's how it goes, man. I fully understand that one. We also have Keith Eister, aka the Iceman, coming with some GPP hot takes. Ice, how you doing?
Pretty good. Short little slate tonight. It's going to be difficult to differentiate on this one because there's not a ton of value out there. There's studs that we want to pay for that we can't really afford. But yeah, interesting little 3-game slate here. We'll do the best we can breaking it down.
Okay, looking forward to it. Cards, I got to give you some kudos. You were on with Meansy yesterday, right? That was you. I'm not making that up.
I was.
Okay. I dropped like a 350, which is pretty good. It didn't make me $1 billion or anything because I think you needed to have like 390 to win, but 350 pretty good. So good work with the tournament takes and the cash plays.
Yeah, I think we hit the build kind of spot on last night, and obviously the Indiana injury news. So we mentioned you might have to pivot due to that, and that was a kind of a slate changer with McConnell not playing. That was the last game of the night. Indiana was like plus 700 dog, and they ended up winning on the road in Golden State. So really impressive performance with Halliburton out last night by them. So hat tip to the Pacers for pulling out that upset W last night. And their wing guys pretty much broke the slate with the fact that they had so few guys available. Nembhard had a big game, so it was a nice night if you had some exposure to those Indiana guys.
Yeah, well, we got to run it back here. I know we don't have the kind of value that we did. We don't have a 3-1 guy who's going to drop 60 plus fantasy points like Nimrod did last night, but that's okay. We'll figure out the build. By the way, in chat says, what kind of beer tonight, Roth? And it's always Pacifico. It's a good. If I'm drinking something other than Pacifico, it's because I drank all my Pacifico. So it's a good night over here. Let's talk about this build a little bit. And cards, you're going to play the meansy role if you don't mind, which means kind of going over the cash build, but also kind of walking us through just an overall outlook of the slate.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an uncomfortable slate. We don't really have a lot of up tempo teams on the slate tonight. If you look, the highest team total is 115 and a half. Then we've got 109, 106, 113, 109, 114. So everybody's bunched together there pretty tightly. And there's really not one game environment that stands out as the game you really want to play. And it makes it a little bit tougher in GPPs, if you're trying to figure out a stack. And in cash games, it makes it hard too because there's not a lot of obvious dirt cheap value. And the one stud that you might want to pay up for is Luka, and it's a back-to-back for them, though they had a blowout last night, so they kind of got to rest everybody. But Luka is 11-8 on FanDuel, and he's $13,000 on DraftKings, which is really, really difficult to fit in a lineup on a slate like this one. So it kind of makes the balance build come out to be what is trending towards optimal. Just because you're not going to feel super comfortable about the punt plays that you want to put in there. And to note, Victor Oladipo is most likely making his season debut for the Heat tonight, but he's probably only going to play like 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. We've got him at 17 minutes, and we've got him at 30% ownership on FanDuel. I will probably eat a hat if he's 30% owned on his first game back. I really don't see that. I think our projection for ownership there is a little bit hot, but it goes to show you that we're starving for that punt value, and so people might try to jam Oladipo in. I don't think you want to do that in cash. And the build is going to probably be more balanced, and it's going to be focused on Miami. So Jimmy Butler is out tonight. Gabe Vincent is also out, and Oladipo's coming back, but he's probably not going to play a lot of minutes. So as we've seen all year, you're probably getting a tight rotation from the Heat whenever Butler doesn't play. If I filter just by the Heat here, you can see we've got their 5 main guys projected to play 34 plus minutes. And none of them are over the top expensive, and it's a 3-game slate. So you're probably going to end up with 3 at least Miami guys in cash, and maybe even 4, and I think you're okay with that. So if we start with the guard spots, this is where the Heat. You're going to start with the Heat. Caleb Martin. We've seen Caleb Martin play well in the games that Butler has missed, and when some of their other guys were out. If you look back maybe 3 weeks, you can see he had a 37, 32, 49, 45 when they were pretty thin in terms of depth. He's 4,600 on FanDuel. He's probably the first guy in your cash game lineup over there. I like Tyler Hero as well, though I would put him below Martin if you're just trying to power rank the Heat guys. I do have some concern with Tyler Hero because, he was out for a while too. Granted, that's been a few weeks, but he was out for a while as well. And this is the second game of a back-to-back that they've played since he came back. So possibly we're a little hot on his minutes tonight, depending on how much Oladipo plays. But I still think you play them both. Hero at 7,700 that's certainly a fine price tag. You've got Bruce Brown. Again, Denver is a little bit thin as well. Michael Porter Jr. is out. KCP, I believe, is still questionable. And that game starts right at lock. So if that news maybe came out here while we were getting ready for the show, I didn't catch it. But in any case, it's not a huge deal breaker for Brown one way or the other. I think he's fine. And he's 5,600. And see, those guys are probably you're going to play probably 2 of them at shooting guard, and 1 if you're playing Martin, you can play him at small forward. If I filter but none of those guys, you'll notice Martin, Hero, Brown, none of them have point guard eligibility. So if you're looking for point guards, you're not getting that much value there at the position. You've probably got to spend here at least on a Jamal Murray, 7,100 on FanDuel. If you can get to Luka, great. People are going to ask if Luka is mandatory. I think on FanDuel, he probably lands in my cash game lineup. We'll get to DraftKings. It's probably not as necessary over there. But on FanDuel, he's probably taken up one of the point guard spots. You compare him with one of these mid-range guys like Murray and fill out your point guard spots. You've got the value guys that I just discussed, Martin, Bruce Brown at shooting guard. And then, you've got your guard spots settled there. But I think Martin is the one guy you have to play. Bruce Brown, because of the salary, is probably landing in that cash game build as well. From there, you can let your lineup construction decide.
So no mention of Lowry there at point guard. Isn't he one of those Miami guys that should get extra run and have an extra burden of scoring?
Yes, I do think Lowry is viable. The problem is that I think, if you're ending up with 4 Heat, I'm probably prioritizing Martin, Hero, Bam at center, and then I think Max Strus fits the lineup a little bit better than Lowry does.
Gotcha.
Because Strus, is $1,400 cheaper, and I think that $1,400 can make a difference. So Lowry is fine if it fits your build, and you're not getting a Luke at point guard. I think he's fine, but even though we've got him at slightly higher ownership than Strus, it's close. I think Strus probably makes it first for me, given the salary discount. So
gotcha.
But Lowry's fine. The omission was not to say that he's not viable. He's just not a priority for me.
Okay.
Other forwards, I just mentioned Adebayo. You can play him at center. Jarrett Allen was questionable throughout the day, but he is in. And because they're facing the Lakers, I think he's fine also, though I would probably prefer him in GPPs given the fact that he's been out a couple weeks. He's viable, I think, for cash, but again, kind of like Lowry, not a guy I'm prioritizing. I think if you're looking for safety, I can't really believe I'm saying it, but I might play Aaron Gordon over Jarrett Allen. and it also saves you $800. I poo-pooed Tim Hardaway last night, saying that his shooting wasn't going to keep up. He was 6 for 12 last night and made 5 threes, so maybe this just is who he is now. He's viable, but I prefer him on DraftKings. Again, those small forward spots, the Heat guys that we already talked about, you're probably fitting in there. At power forward, you can go with Evan Mobley, Aaron Gordon, Bam if you're not playing him at center. And Bogdanovich, I think, is viable too. If that 6K salary fits your cash game build, I think he's reasonably safe over other guys kind of in that range. And then center, almost all these guys also have power forward eligibility, so we've already talked about them. The one guy who doesn't is Jokic. And there's probably almost no way you're fitting Luka and Jokic in the same lineup on FanDuel or on DraftKings for that matter. I would prioritize Luka because point guard does not have a lot of value. And center, we've got several other options that we've also mentioned as power forward plays. Mobley, Adebayo, Aaron Gordon are all center eligible. So if deciding in cash, I'm probably prioritizing Luka and letting Jokic sit on the sidelines tonight.
Okay, good stuff. Ice, let's talk some FanDuel GPPs. Seems like everybody's loading up on Miami. Are you trying to load up more, or are you pivoting elsewhere?
The problem with trying to pivot off of Miami is there's not a ton of other value on the slate.
Yeah.
They're the one team that is missing some guys. So the value pieces on Miami, I think they're kind of necessary. There are a couple of guys who I think are decent pivots, but you're still going to end up with at least a couple pieces from Miami in any given lineup, I think. I will try to be underweight on Bam and Kyle Lowry. Just like Tyler Hero has the ceiling, so he's like the expensive Heat guy that I want to go overweight on. You could argue Bam has a decent ceiling as well, but I do like some other pivots from the big men, Jokic in particular, who we'll get to here. But I think being underweight on Bam, but overweight on the value is probably the way I'm handling this, and that's just because there's not a ton of great options out there. Cards touched on it a little bit, like the game environments on this slate, just there's nothing that stands out. They're all slower games with lower totals. I still will be stacking and just hope to hit the game that goes over the total. But it's not clear which game that will be. So you're just going to have to mix and match a little bit and take some shots.
So you don't have a preference on like which one, you're not trying to target one over the others outside of that Miami value.
Correct. And part of that's just the way the salaries, like if I was stacking Dallas, Denver, I'm looking at Luka and Jokic, and that's just not possible on this slate because there isn't enough value to make it work. Kind of the same thing with the Lakers. You want AD, who has been absolutely crushing, particularly here on FanDuel. He is super expensive. He's more in play for me on DraftKings, but on FanDuel here, it's really tough to get up to AD. That's what brings Jokic into play here. You save $1,000 going to Jokic. The matchup against Dallas, it's guys like Maxi Kleber and Christian Wood who see time at the 5 outside of Dwight Powell. So just not seeing really a way that Dallas can slow Jokic down. So if I'm spending on one guy, Luka is great, but he's coming with significantly more ownership than Jokic. So Jokic is the guy I want to be overweight on in tournaments. That's kind of your one spend, and then you have to start filling in some value pieces. We could just go through a couple of those position by position. I mentioned I like being underweight on Lowry at point guard just because he's a guy who has failed often enough. Good matchup against Detroit, probably the best matchup on the slate. But I don't mind going down a little bit cheaper, and I'm looking at the Lakers for guys to do that with. Dennis Schroeder came back after missing a couple of games. He should be out there for 30-ish minutes. He's 4,800, so I like just saving the money going down to Schroeder. You could take some shots on Westbrook too. Probably not going to play more than 30 minutes, and he's up at 7K, so I prefer Schroeder to save some money. But Westbrook would be in play for me too, and then Dinwiddie sitting there at 6,800, I think is viable as well. If I'm playing Jokic, I want some Dallas pieces. Cards touched on Hardaway, definitely a great tournament play on FanDuel here. DraftKings, he's going to be massive chalk just because of the price tag. But I do like him in tournaments here. Let's Let's see here. A couple other guards. I wouldn't touch Oladipo. He's not going to play the minutes. Jaden Ivey, I think, is interesting. If you're trying to run back some of that Miami value, Ivey is certainly in play. That pretty much does it for the guards I'm interested in. Moving on to a couple of forwards. This is really where the Heat guys, Martin and Strus, I think you're ending up overweight on those guys just because there's not a ton of options down in the 4 and 5K range. The pivots are tough to swallow, particularly at the small forward position. You have like a DFS at 4,800. Bogdanovic for a little bit more at 6K is in play, but like that price is getting uncomfortable. Not a great matchup against Miami. So I think going overweight on the Heat guys here at the forward position is the way to go. Aaron Gordon is fine if that's where you land. I do like Isaiah Stewart as an option as well. He's pricey, but he's been playing close to 30 minutes. So don't mind him on the other side of some of my Heat stuff. And I think Marvin Bagley is a decent pivot off of Stewart. Stewart's running into a little bit of ownership, but nobody's playing Marvin Bagley. So I do like pivoting off of the Stewart. And that's even more of a discrepancy on DraftKings when we get there, but I will have some Bagley for sure. At center, talked about Jokic. He's going to be a big overweight stance. And Kevin Love is another guy that I want to be overweight on. He's really cheap. Obviously, Jared Allen coming back is going to limit the minutes. He's not a guy that plays big minutes anyway, but he can absolutely crush in like 20 to 24 minutes. So getting overweight on Kevin Love is another way that I want to handle this. Just an uncomfortable situation with Cleveland with Allen coming back. That definitely docks Mobley, who's kind of priced up now. But I think Kevin Love coming off the bench could still put up a bunch of fantasy points in limited minutes.
Okay, very good. Good stuff, guys. That was for FanDuel, which, by the way, is our sponsor of the show. Make sure you sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their fantastic bonus offer. New customers get the no-sweat first bet up to $1K. Also, shout out to the FanDuel Single Entry Series, which presented by RotoGrinders. That just ended. The winners from last Sunday's final contests in first, TF Bologna. Second was BM Williams, and third was Professional. So big shout out to FanDuel and everything they're doing. They are the reason the show is free. So hit that thumbs up on the YouTube. That's all we ask. Guys, let's kick it over to DK here. I feel like I can get Luka and I can get Jokic, and I don't hate my build. So I think I might make all the money, but Cards, walk me through what we're supposed to do on DK. Cards. Oh, you're muted, bud.
I was muted. I apologize.
All good.
So I'm gonna have to call your bluff here on Luka and Jokic. So I have done this. I was messing around with it while you guys were talking, and I put Luka and Jokic in a DK build, as you can see. Luka and Jokic leaves you with $4,200 per player to spend, and if I right on the left-hand side here, I have highlighted 3, 6, 9, 13 players right here. Not a single one of them. These are our 13 highest owned players on the DK slate. Not a single one of them is even under this average that you have per player if you start with Luka and Jokic. So it's most definitely contrarian. If you find those 3K guys on DraftKings that even if they only score you like 18, that might be enough tonight if, Luka and Jokic go bananas. So that's kind of what you're banking on, and then you got to get the value right. The problem is, who are those 3K guys? Because like even Oladipo, who I kind of made fun of on FanDuel, he's 4,800 on DraftKings, so you're not playing him there at that salary. I mean, if you're looking at Detroit, like Corey Joseph at 3K doesn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence.
Call on me.
Roth, press your buzzer. Who do you got?
The answer's Josh Green for the Mavs. He's 3-2. He got 31 minutes last night, which I guess maybe was a little bit of blowout.
Yeah, they were ahead by like 60.
Right. He got 27 minutes before, also was a blowout. But he's getting minutes. He's shooting it. He's stuffing the stat sheet. That's my guy. I think he's going to get you 20 fantasy points at 3-2.
That's fine, but I mean, talk to Keith because that's a tournament thought. Like, you're not
Okay.
playing Josh Green in cash.
You're not.
I just on DK with Luka being 13,000. My point of all this isn't to run Roth's idea into the ground. I think it has some merit in tournaments. The point is, I think on DraftKings, you're probably priced out of Luka. You're probably priced out of Jokic, and you're probably priced out of the two Lakers in cash. You can see that we've got them all under 20% ownership on a 3-game slate. And they all have, negative RG values, low smash numbers. Frankly, I think your DraftKings cash discussion starts at $8,700. I don't think your DraftKings cash lineup has anybody above that on it. It makes it a lot easier to build. And again, it makes those other guys interesting for tournaments. But cash games, I just don't think you're going for one of the studs on DK tonight based on the way the roster construction works. We've both mentioned it already. Tim Hardaway, significantly better play on DraftKings because he's $4,400. Tyler Hero is cheaper on DraftKings as well. Again, I'm higher on Strus than Lowry, but you can make your own decision on whether or not you feel okay with Lowry in cash. He's safe enough. I have my reservations with Lowry, but that's more of a personal bias than anything. Bruce Brown is still fine, but he's one guy that's maybe a little less exciting on DraftKings. I think I'd maybe pay the extra $1,000 to get to Murray on DK if I can. Schroeder at $4,100 on DraftKings, reasonable value if you need it, simply because the slate doesn't have a lot of it. So you've got Schroeder, Bruce Brown, Jamal Murray, Max Strus, Hardaway, Hero. Those are probably the guys in cash games that you're targeting, with Hero and Hardaway being kind of the musts of that bunch of guards. Forwards, again, Hardaway and Strus are small forward eligible if you want. Caleb Martin, small forward only on DraftKings. Slightly more expensive than he is on FanDuel, but I think he's all right. Even Highsmith, if you wanted to go, again, punt on DraftKings because he's 3,400, should play about 25 minutes. Don't think you need it, but certainly think you can. Evan Mobley, again, I think is cash viable as well. And then at center on DraftKings, you can play 2 if you want, but Bam at 8K I think is probably a cash game staple. And then, Jared Allen may be a little more cash viable on DraftKings with the price. I'll reserve Kevin Love for GPPs, and frankly, Isaiah Stewart as well is better in GPPs, Jokic GPPs. I just think Adebayo is the cash play here.
Okay, very good. Let's talk tournaments. Ice, what are you doing on DK?
So I certainly understand wanting to get Luka and Jokic into a build, but they are the two most expensive players on the slate.
It's because the game's on TV and that's what I'm watching. So I'm purely doing it for my own entertainment sake. But
yeah, I mean, in large field, viable for sure, but you need multiple of those 3K pieces to make this work. I don't disagree. Josh Green is an interesting play. I think he's more like in the 20 to 22 minute range without the blowout, though. So that 20 DraftKings points is going to be, it's not a lock by any means. And the ceiling is
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ceiling is limited too, unless it's a blowout. And in a blowout, then Luka and Jokic are not getting there. So it's tough to include him. I think Schroeder at 4,100 could certainly be in that build, and there's a little ceiling there. Maybe Hayward Highsmith you could take a look at, 3,400, a big per minute guy. Maybe he gets a little bit of run here, but it's really tough to do. I think the mid-range build makes more sense. And the other thing that's factoring in on DraftKings is Anthony Davis is actually cheaper than Jokic, where on FanDuel it was the other way around. So I prefer Anthony Davis, who has been just absolutely crushing. Just look at his game log. Anthony Davis is just going nuts on a nightly basis. We thought it was because LeBron had missed a couple of games there, but I mean, guy just put up 85 DK points with LeBron in the game in his last matchup. Not an easy matchup against Cleveland here, especially with Jared Allen returning. But it just doesn't seem to matter to Davis. So he's my primary spend up for the day. You don't really get more than one, in my opinion, on this slate because you have to get into some really uncomfortable 3K plays if you want to do that. The rest of the guys are very similar to what I mentioned on FanDuel. The other major difference is the Hardaway price. You're running into massive chalk. I don't want to be over the weight on overweight on Hardaway on DraftKings, where I definitely did on FanDuel. I think just even with the field or even a slight fade on Hardaway is totally fine here.
Okay.
There you go, Roth. You can make that Luka and Jokic build work if you play your boy Green and Schroeder and Highsmith.
And then
you can make it work.
That's exactly what I'm doing. But honestly, Ice's point that I'm counting on maybe some blowout run to get Green, but then the flip side of that is that the 2 stars that I have would be playing less, so that doesn't make any damn sense. So that wasn't something I had considered, and honestly just like pokes a hole in my entire build.
So Jeff Green for Denver,
then
or maybe
somebody has to get hurt and Green can play more.
Right, there we go. Just asking for injuries. Hey, let's get to some QQs, guys. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes here. I love this question from Reggae Joe, so I'll start there, and then I'll get to the rest of them. Lightning round. With Deadman out, the only other center I see aside from Ban is Jovic. Do you think he might see backup center minutes? Do you think they go small instead? If either of you has a strong lean, take it.
I mean,
I will say it's going to be tough for them to go small just because of Detroit. Detroit often plays Stewart and Bagley on the floor together, so I don't hate that idea. We don't currently have him projecting for minutes. I think we have it at 2
minutes.
Like, he's not getting a ton of minutes, but we just talked about how poor the value is here. So I mean, you can do worse things. It's a 3-game slate.
Okay, all right, very good. More QQs coming up here.
Not that it's a strong take, but I'll take the over on 2 minutes.
Yes, yeah. Bad Booby says, hey, should we be playing a lot of Cavs players since their pace is 30 and the Lakers is first?
It's definitely a pace-up game for Cleveland. The problem is that, Mitchell's spendy, Garland's spendy, Mobley's spendy, and Allen's back. So, I think you mix and match them, but nobody grades out as like this must-have guy.
Very good. DK Cash cards 2v2, LeBron Kleba, or Stuart Garland.
Yeah, second one.
Yeah. DK Cash 3v3, cards Martin Garland Highsmith, or Strus Love Murray.
I would lean the second one.
Okay. Strayface says, Ice, is the Luka Joker build more viable on FanDuel? If you had to build it somewhere, where would you build it?
Sorry, I'm lagging a little bit. It was Luka Jokic. Which site?
Basically, if you were doing a Luka Jokic build, which site would you do it on? FanDuel or DK?
I think the pricing is more friendly for FanDuel, but like you can get like 3K on DK being the floor is more useful. Like, so I think DK is my answer. I don't like going any lower than like 4,500 on FanDuel.
Sure. Okay. Mark Flores says, pick one, Strus or Martin on DK cards.
On DK, I think I would go with slight lean to Strus.
Very good. Achilles, FanDuel Cash cards, Lamar Stevens and Tyler Hero, or Strus and Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, second one. No, don't play. I forget who the first guy was now.
Lamar Stevens. I didn't know who that was.
Yeah, don't play him in cash.
It's not too common. You just drop a name, and I'm like, that's a brand new name to me. FanDuel Cash 2v2 here. You want Hardaway and Lowry or Murray and Strus?
Again, I would take the second one, but that is partially because of my anti-Lowry bias.
Okay, very good. Derek says, DKGPP, Ice, I need a guard or forward, 4,600 or less, not named THJ.
DK, that was?
Yes, it was DKGPP.
I like Highsmith there at 4,500.
Okay, very good. True North says a Doncic Joker build or Davis Mitchell Joker. So there's a tournament question. So, Ice.
Davis Mitchell Joker. Who was the first one?
Yeah, the first one, he was like, do you put the mega stud in there or like 2 mid-range guys? I think is the gist of the question. It wasn't worded very well, though.
Yeah. Like, would you rather just go with a Luka Jesus, a Luka Jokic build, which you don't want to do, or a Davis Mitchell.
Yeah, definitely the
Joker
second
build.
option.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Whew. All right, coming up on lock here. If you're watching this for free, thanks to our sponsor FanDuel, make sure you hit that thumbs up, guys. We would certainly appreciate that. Scrolling up just a little bit. Bojan in the DKGPP. Any interest? Bojan, Lowry, or Bojan DKGPP?
I think you can take some shots on Bojan for sure.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay. With that, we have hit the lock, gentlemen. And this doesn't appear to be a night where we're going to get a whole lot of post-lock questions. So I think we can get on out of here. Anything you guys want to add?
Nothing here, although I told the family that this was a 4-hour show so that I could stay isolated from the sick kid upstairs. So we gotta kill about another 3.5 hours. I'm gonna need you to.
That's a solid move, Cards. That's a pro dad maneuver right there.
That's horrible. I shouldn't say that. I feel bad for the kid. He's not feeling well.
No, I didn't realize today's show was late. So like I'm, fighting the two kids and I'm just looking at the clock and like salvation is only 5 minutes away when I get to go work. And then I saw that the show was late and I was like, no, 35 more minutes. But hey, you know what? We survived. And now we get back to them. So for Cards and for Ice and for our wonderful production team, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love you. We will catch you tomorrow. You have been